A lot of things we live by are so obviously false. I'm not convinced that any religion I know of is true, at least not in the way that they are largely practiced and conceptualized as of now. I am also not really intellectually convinced about the common conceptualizations of moral facts. For example, I will not kill an innocent person, and I understand the utility of legal punishment for such acts, but I'm not sure if it is objectively true that not killing an innocent person is a categorical good. Well, to touch on the first part, I'm not convinced that any religion I know of is true. Now, this is a really difficult one, actually, because I think most people, not most people, actually, I do think most people in the world are religious, but most people in the UK, and I would assume the USA, are atheists nowadays or don't believe in God. So, and I'm not going to talk about other places in the world because I would just be talking out my arse. I'm not really sure what it's like in France, or I would assume it's quite similar in the rest of Europe, but I'm still not going to talk about other countries that I have no idea about. But talking about the UK, it's quite a difficult topic because you can't definitively say how much of the modern culture and morality is comprised of religious values, because I am aware that many of the moral values that we abide by do have religious roots, and that without religion, maybe those values would have never come to be. But I'm going to start from where I am. I'm not convinced that any religion I know of is true, at least not in the way they are largely practiced and conceptualized as of now. I don't think that's an unpopular opinion. I do think most people in the UK think religion is not true. And I think a lot of the people who even follow religion don't believe that they don't believe it literally. I think many people who follow religion believe in the lessons. They see the value that religion provides, and they see the benefits in their community, in their lives, and they're willing to be religious because they see how much worth it has. And yeah, I'm sure there's many people who literally believe everything in the Bible happened, and that they believe in everything that they're told regarding religion. There's an afterlife, there's heaven, there's there were three wise men. They believe everything. In Christianity, that is. But yeah, so I suppose the first bit, there's a lot of gray area in that statement that I'm not really sure how they feel about. And then the second part, I will not kill an innocent person, and I understand the utility of legal punishment, but I'm not sure it is objectively true, and that not killing an innocent person is categorical good. I'm not sure if there are any categorical goods in that sense. I shall also help the needy whenever I can, but I will do that because I would like to do it, not because it is good to do it. Oh, I see what they're saying. So they're saying that good and bad is completely subjective. And yeah, I agree with that. I do think that good and bad is entirely a human construct, and that, or animals don't have good or bad. But I suppose the difference between animals and, well, I say it like we're different, we are animals, but the difference between other animals is that they're not conscious in the same way, and that they don't actively think about their decisions in detail. So on the one hand, I do agree with this, that that morality is something we've imposed on ourselves for society to thrive and for our survival to be more probable. But I guess, why does that matter? I think a lot of the things that when I read these posts, and when I even think about my own opinions, I just and these philosophical questions, I always come back to that question, like, why does it actually matter? Why does it matter if morality is a human construct that doesn't objectively exist outside of our own minds? It doesn't really. I don't know. It's but let's read the rest. People do what they want to do. The moral framework and the social jargon built up around it is mostly used as a distraction from the obvious. Surely you can come up with examples where someone does something so self-sacrificial that it seems ridiculous to call it self-serving in this way. But I would argue those acts are only apparent sacrifices. A mother would sacrifice herself for her child, but if that mother's neural architecture had been made in some other way, she would not have acted in the same way, so her actions are a function of her biology, which in turn determines her psychology. I honestly find this sort of line of thinking so boring and so, again, just pointless. I find it idiotic almost, because I agree, but again, what is the point in this? I think this is someone that most people would agree with, and they see the line of logic. I just don't understand why it's necessary to think about this. It's not. It's not necessary to think about what does this do? But then you could argue, why are you so offended by someone talking about this? That surely if it provokes that kind of reaction from you, it's worth talking about. Have some merit in it. But I just don't think. I think they're kind of stating the obvious. I'm not really sure how this is a deep thought. A lot of the things we live by are so obviously fake. How is it fake to have morality and to... Because again, I think most people would agree that that morality is something that we've created, and that every culture has a different framework of morality that they abide by. So I don't really understand what they even mean by a lot of... You know what this almost sounds like? It sounds like r/I'm 14 and this is deep, because I just feel like a lot of what he's saying is just common sense. We only have the freedom to do what we want, but we cannot choose what we want any more than we can choose our place of birth or our genetic environmental influences. I'm not sure. I definitely don't agree with that. You can't. I know what they mean in the sense that it's very difficult to choose what you want, but over time you can modify your desires. You might be a heroin addict who deeply desires heroin, but with enough time and effort, rehabilitation, you can train yourself to want something else. And yeah, maybe you'll fall off the wagon. Maybe you'll go back to heroin, but I just don't think that holds up, in the sense that I have a way of handling this. If I get pleasure from helping others, most people might be wired that way too. They might not just realize it yet due to some psychological factors. Most people are wonderful people when they are happy. joyful people tend to be generous. In my perception, most unkind behavior stems from an inner sense of lack. Again, I feel like they're just stating the obvious. Yes, unhappy people lash out. They don't feel secure in themselves. They need, they're desperate for external validation. They need to feel power. They need to feel control. They need to feel better than other people. That's kind of, again, I think that's common sense. You're dressing it up as this deep intellectual thought of, oh, it's just, I just, maybe I'm missing the mark massively. If you disagree with this and you think, oh, actually, he's actually saying this, I just don't understand. I just don't think there's that much deep thought in this. If we can figure out ways to properly address our own inner sense of lack, we may manage to become more joyful, which in turn will naturally translate to social generosity, which in turn will impact the world in certain ways. Yeah, stating the obvious again. Okay. To the people who are convinced of moral truths, this may be an interesting perspective. I don't think, unless I am completely delusional, I just don't think many people think this is good because it's good, this is bad because it's bad. I think most people would agree with me that this is our perception of good because it benefits society and it benefits each individual in the society. I don't think people think this is good because it's good. Unless you are very religious and you think there's a God, this is the objective truth, this is good because God says it. I'm sure there are some people like that, but I just don't think most people are like that. Well, okay, and this is the first comment. Well, isn't this a refreshingly honest post? I'm not sure how I feel about that because it is honest, but it's not like refreshing. It's just stating the obvious. What if good actions are just ones that the integrated human systems can integrate coherently over time? And bad actions are ones that reliably fragment and degrade the human system over time. Yeah, I think it's just a fancy way of saying good actions benefit society and bad actions don't, for the most part. And they're easy to implement. Okay. I've noticed this within me as well. When I'm joyful, there's a tendency to give and just wishing for everyone's happiness. It doesn't feel like a transaction. I'll give you this if you give me this, like most relationships. Especially since I started meditating and just trying to be more aware. I feel so at ease that being joyful just comes naturally. Yeah, so to conclude, I think that post was entirely, I don't know, maybe I'm way off base because most of the comments are like, oh, this is really refreshing. I really like this. Thank you for that input. I just think it's kind of obvious. Okay. Well, yeah, I guess I'm going to leave it there. But before I go, I'd love to hear what your thoughts on that are. Like, what do you think about any of the posts that I read? What are your opinions? What do you disagree with me about?